To her today, like if she was in her place. Perfect. The time is now 6:05. I'm going to call Government Services Committee meeting to order on this June 21st of 2022. This meeting is being streamed and recorded, so please know that you will be able to refer to this meeting if need be to your constituents for future dates. All right, so to begin this meeting, we see there is no public comment, but I'm going to ask that the Youth and Governance representative who is here with us to please read the Youth and Governance statement.
Hello, I am a member of the Racine County Youth and Governance Program, and I will be participating in tonight's meeting. This program serves to empower youth in Racine County by encouraging me to participate in local government. I have agreed to abide by the applicable standards of conduct that would govern any elected county board member. While I am encouraged to participate and am allowed to have a non-binding advisory vote on matters before the committee, all formal action taken by this committee will be based solely on the binding votes made by county board supervisors.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the next on the agenda will just be my comments. I want this committee to know that the Government Services Committee, we oversee the constitutional offices of the Racine County. And so what I'm going to do to better inform you, especially if you want to think about making changes, it's good to know, first of all, what we oversee and get familiar with what the offices actually do, maybe some policy statutes in which they have to follow, and give you the connections of those running those departments so you can build a relationship with them before trying to bombard with change. It's just really good to get a thorough understanding of the different departments that the county is overseeing. So we do have one of those departments here before us. It is an agenda item, but first there is an actionable item. Very quickly, we do have the approval of the minutes from our previous meetings. We will need a motion. All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Dembski and Secretary Maldonado seconding. Any comments? I'm going to ask the Youth and Governance representative to, how do you wish to vote?
Aye.
Perfect. All right. The committee, how do you wish to vote? Please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any nays? All right. It is passed. All right. So the new businesses, we have a presentation by our communications director, Jackie Bratt. So I am going to give the floor to you.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. So I'll just give you guys a brief overview of our department. So in 2010 and many years leading up to 2010, there was a great collaboration between all of the municipalities to form joint dispatch. So that was finally agreed upon in 2010, officially went into place in January of 2011. So since January of 2011, we've been working really hard to incorporate those other municipalities. They came over in stages, and a number of different training initiatives were taking place as those different municipalities joined us in one room. So since then, we have been working with 46 dispatchers. Per the joint contract, that's what our numbers are. 46 dispatchers, 3 shift supervisors, the assistant director, myself, the director, and then we've added a public safety administrator. who is someone who oversees all of our computer programs that we use. He's on site in our offices, so is there to address things real time for us as we need them. So our call volume is about 800 to 1,000 calls a day. So by those numbers, we are a very busy center. There's very little downtime that our staff has. We undergo a number of trainings. So when a new hire is brought onto the team, it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to train a new person into the many jobs and responsibilities that we're responsible for. So it is a huge undertaking to bring on new people, and those of you that were at the tour today kind of saw that in action. So it takes a number of certifications that go along with that training as well. So one thing that we offer here at Racine County that we're proud to offer to all of our callers is emergency medical dispatch. So if someone's calling with a rescue type of need, we're able to provide pre-arrival instruction to those people real time until those responders can get to the people that need the help. So if they're in a position to be able to do additional tasks, I guess, if you will. So whether that be CPR, whether that be applying pressure to a wound, a bleeding wound, providing clean dressing for maybe a mother who's giving birth unexpectedly or surprisingly early or anything like that. It shouldn't be unexpected, right? But we have had that happen actually. But yeah, so a number of things that we're able to walk through. We can pull up a computer program that we have on every position in the room, and it'll give us the exact questions to ask those people based on the things that they're presenting as far as symptoms. So we dispatch for 8 police departments and 12 fire departments. And so 3 of those fire departments are east of I-94, all being full-time departments, and the remaining being a combination of whether that be combination department, meaning full-time and part-time, or whether strictly volunteers. So response times are drastically different east and west of the interstate. So obviously we are a 24/7, 365 operation. Like I mentioned, we're very busy. We hold a lot of critical roles, and that's something that's not taken lightly by anybody on our team. Hence the 6 to 8 months of training that we spend investing in each of our employees, as well as ongoing education and training throughout the career. So that is a very high level overview of our critical operation.
Thank you so very much. For those supervisors who weren't able to make it today, the Youth and Governance did tour the dispatch center, and there was a lot going on at that time and a lot that we learned. And one of the things that stands out to me is that just from hearing the stories, there's a few stories that were shared, and I'm hoping Jackie will do the same, because I feel like certain stories help humanize it and help bring forth change too. But I see in the dispatchers handling a call, not knowing what the call was going on. You say that there is 6 to 8 months of training for that position, and not everyone is made out to be able to fit that position. I am just curious of if somebody is in that role and they're very good at organizing chaos, but however, once these calls start coming in, their personalities may be healers. And that means they're sucking in, they're taking in that call, and people are calling 911 in critical situations where they need help immediately. I am assuming that is a lot of weight that they take on, even if their task is to complete the job and get the information to the rightful people. I remember you saying the county does offer, is it the EAP program?
Yep, employee assistance, yep.
Yep. I'm wondering if you could talk about, you talked about a peer program as well, because I think maybe that speaks to more immediate need rather than calling up, because after handling something like that, there's a lot of weight that must be carried in that whole room. Could you speak about the peer program?
Sure. So we have a number of our staff peer support. Peer support. Yep. So we have a number of our team members that are trained in peer support. So we've taken on additional trainings. I started going to trainings like this when I was a dispatcher for the sheriff's office, so prior to consolidation, and we've continued with some additional trainings, adding team members to that. Some team members have since retired, but we continually try to train. And we actually, all of us take on at least a 4-hour training annually to just keep that refresher on the forefront of all of our minds. Even if you're not officially trained in peer support team training, you still are a peer to your coworkers. So whether you're one of those peer support team members or not, you need to know the importance of peer support. So if you're sitting next to someone, you need to be able to recognize that they need to take a break, or maybe you're noticing that they're shutting down and they need to maybe be sent home for the night, or at least a conversation be had to see, would you be open to going home for the night? Sometimes people are stubborn and they want to see their duties through, right? They don't want to feel like they're giving up, on the rest of their team. So sometimes it's a one-on-one conversation. Sometimes it's as simple as asking, like, hey, you doing okay? That was a really tough call, that I overheard you taking. Are you doing okay with that? And so sometimes it's as simple as just checking in on someone that you're sitting next to, but sometimes it's a little more than that. Asking them, would you feel more comfortable talking to a coworker? They don't always feel comfortable talking to their boss, and I completely understand that. That's why we have the peer support, because we want to make sure that we're giving them other avenues to share that information with, to talk with, and to open up and get some of those thoughts and feelings out. Because like I mentioned earlier today on the tour, we're human beings. We're not computers. We're not machines. You have to be able to understand how to process what you're dealing with, because the things that we hear on a daily basis are not normal things. They're not things that the everyday person would hear on a normal basis, and we have to learn how to deal with that.
Thank you, Jackie. I do want to open it up questions coming from the committee, but I just want to follow up on that. Knowing you have the EAP program and the peer support program, I just feel that, there's always need. Mental health is such a real thing. And taking calls, if you have a volume of 800 to 1,000 calls a day of people calling in critical situations, that's a lot. That's a lot for somebody to handle. And I'm sure there's some wounds that are happening during that time. I guess it's more of a statement. I don't have anything else, but I just feel there should be more. But I will follow up with a question, however, and ask about the retention. How is that in your department?
So I would say retention has been a struggle, to say the least. And with the job climate that we're faced with, the increase in wages has been a drastic help with retention. I don't know that I can say yet that it's been a huge help with recruitment, because those recruitment numbers still aren't where they used to be. When we would post a job, we would see over 100 applicants easily, just in that 2-week time frame, and those numbers just aren't there. And then, we do have a test that you have to be able to pass in order to progress to the next step of the process. People either aren't passing the test or simply aren't scheduling the test. It's not a test that they have to physically go to anymore. It's something that they can take at home. So it's not like it's an inconvenience, as far as having to drive somewhere. Because we were fearful that that was a roadblock, right? That someone doesn't have a ride to get somewhere, or just simply cannot, maybe they can't leave their kids or something to go take this test. Maybe they can't leave their job to go take this test, but this is something where they can take the test at home when it's, maybe it's right before they go to bed. Maybe it's right when they wake up. So we tried to make that easier by making it virtual, where they can just take it. We're still not seeing people schedule that. Not all of them. Some of them are, but some just are not scheduling. And then others, sometimes we get to the next step in the process and then they don't show up for interviews. So it's an odd time that we're faced with.
That's good information for this committee to know. I'm going to open up the floor for questions now. Please, Supervisor Maldonado.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chairwoman. I guess one question for the retention piece. Do y'all offer what are they called? So like a $50 bonus to any of the workers who refer other workers to join?
Yeah, I mean, there's currently the employee referral that's in place for, I know it's not for all departments, but for dispatch, that is certainly one of them. If any current county employee refers someone who is successfully hired, there is that referral bonus that's included for the employee as well as for the person who's hired. And then after they've been on staff for a year, at 1 year of employment, there is that second piece to that referral. So there's an incentive there. That's helped a little bit too. We've seen a few of those come through already. So, yeah.
Supervisor Wishaw, please.
Ms. Bratz, thank you for everything you and your team do. Just a couple questions. I guess the first one is, what are your challenges? Where do you see the department moving to in the next 5 years? I know that's a tough outlook, given some of the challenges you've already laid out, but I'm sure you probably have a high level view of where you think the department should go, and if there's anything that we as supervisors can do to make things easier within our power, possibly. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest challenges is probably the increase in call volume that we steadily see. And I don't know what the answer is to that. You know, we want to make sure that people are answering the phone. As far as some other dispatch centers do have phone trees, and I think that it's important that we have a person answer our phone lines. And maybe the answer to that is some more public education as far as what people should be calling the dispatch center for versus, you know, what they can be calling City Hall or their municipal halls for, that kind of thing. I think sometimes people just don't know who they should call, and they know that there's somebody at the dispatch center. So while at times it can be frustrating, it's not frustration that's directed at our callers. It's just a matter of they're not sure where else to turn. So I think just walking through some of those things, you know, identifying better ways to get some of that public education piece out there. We do have a community education team. So far, that's been focused on getting into the schools and making sure that the kids understand what we need to know when they're faced with calling 911. And, you know, something that we talked about today on the tour was, what's the very first thing that we are going to need to know is where you are, right? Location, location, location. So just trying to you know, put some of that in the minds of the kids who might be faced with calling 911 and really not sure what to tell us. So we want to make sure that they're a little bit more comfortable with what we need to know, and
Sure.
quickly.
And then just kind of a quick follow-up, talking about employee retention. Do you think it would be beneficial if, let's say, Racine County partnered with area school districts from an education standpoint to kind of touch base on what you just said, but also from a recruitment standpoint? I mean, especially when you're talking about juniors and seniors looking for careers that pay very well.
Yeah, I think
for
that
the
would
level
be-
of stress.
yeah.
I'm just curious if that's something that we could potentially look at doing.
I do think that would be a huge advantage as far as getting into like at least the high schools, or maybe even the upper class of those middle schools, you know, as they start to think about what it is that they truly want to do down their path of careers, and just offering, you know, the insight into what we do there, and that it truly is a career. I know a lot of people like to view it as a stepping stone, but we've really tried to drive the fact that this is a career. This is something that you want to get started in and just really stick with, that we have a critical role that we play, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be a stepping stone into going into, you know, a police officer or other directions.
Sure. So just real quick follow-up question for that. Is that something that this committee can look into or explore from an HR standpoint, to direct HR to possibly explore that option? Because, you know, obviously recruitment is challenging for everybody, but if we don't start now, you're not going to see the improvement that you need, right?
Yeah, and I mean, whether that's something that HR needs to do, or all of us just kind of working together collectively. I know a few months back, I saw on one of the area high schools, they had some sort of hiring fair. And I had messaged that high school on Facebook and just asked them, like, hey, I noticed that no one from Racine County Public Safety was there. You know, there was nothing from the sheriff's office there, nothing from the DA's office or any of us. So I just said, hey, here's my contact information. If you could include me on the mailings that go out on that, to let us know, so that we can try to get out in front of that. I know Union Grove has something similar, so I've let them know to add me to that email list, so that we can try to be included on some of that, and get out there and talk to them.
Sorry, if you need anything for Burlington, definitely reach out. I can
Great.
help you out.
Will do. Thank you.
Just to follow up and answer your question, Supervisor Wishaw, and also to inform you too, Jackie, is that the county is doing an internship program right now. One of the youth that were part of the tour today, there are a couple more that are part of the IT who were along with the tour, and it's a paid internship. We had a 14-year-old boy who's in the IT department, but they're scattered throughout the department. So maybe it just didn't get that far to your department, but that might be something that we just reach out whoever helped organize that. So there is an internship program already in place, but to ask if it's something this committee do, I think as we would oversee policies and resolutions and ordinances, it might be something just to really suggest and maybe have a conversation with HR. But if you're looking for support, any of us supervisors could help along that process as well. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, is there any other supervisors with questions? Supervisor Trottier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Jackie. Good to see you again.
You too.
Like your stories, those are great. I hear them often from my neighbor,
Yep.
okay, who has worked for 25 years.
Really shy, I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah, really shy. Candy, give me a break. But I do like those stories because those hit the heart. In regards to staffing, are you at 100% staffed right now?
We are not 100%.
You are not?
Nope.
Okay,
So
where are you?
We are in a hiring process to fill up to 100% staffing. We just offered a job to one gal who has experience, who will join us, it sounds like August 1st. And then there's 4 more that are not already with experience, and they will join us later in August.
And that should bring you,
Yes.
should bring you.
Yep.
Right, great, good job. A couple of things, knowing some of the things that go on in the finance area of the county, one of the big hurdles that we have moving forward is going from analog to digital. Now, that is going to be a big, number one, implementation and a big funding source. It's my understanding that 911 is a state mandate, correct?
Correct.
So the funding sources could be through grants, to do this properly, let's be honest, we're going to need help from the state. So we'll be reaching out. What is that time period? Do you have any idea based on other counties that have gone from analog? I'm sure Milwaukee County is digital now. What's the time frame that it takes to go from analog to digital? And one other question, what are the benefits? I don't understand IT. I'm not into IT.
So some of the benefits are better coverage, especially within buildings, as far as radio coverage goes for public safety, whether that be for fire and EMS or whether that be for law enforcement. So as they go into the building, right now with analog, they lose some of that coverage when they go into the interior of a building. So there's challenges that they're presented with that system right now. It's not to say that we don't have a strong radio system. I don't want to say that at all. We have a strong and robust system. The biggest challenge with the system that we currently have is that some of the infrastructure for the system that we have is end of life. We're having a difficult time getting parts as some of those pieces fail. So that's probably the biggest challenge with our current system is the fact that some of those necessary parts are not able to be obtained anymore because the systems are end of life. One of those being our dispatch consoles. So they're end of life. So far we have enough spare parts that we're able to keep things running sustainably, but we do have to go toward another system in order to withstand the next 20 to 25 years.
In the time frame?
So the time frame.
Thank you.
We've had a couple of meetings already, just some initial meetings. And what we're told is that from the time of signing a contract with the new system, it will be online 18 to 24 months from the signature of contract. So it takes about 2 years to be fully completed and implemented.
And with, the supply chains being short and things like that, right now you feel that we can maintain the analog system before we have to hit the button and convert to the digital system.
Yes.
Okay.
And the nice thing about the system that we have it was built from a couple of the guys that worked in the radio tower, which the tower is services both the city and the county. But these gentlemen, up until last year when the second one retired, so one retired years ago, now the second one retired, they were the guys who built this system and they knew it like the back of their hand. We're still able to leverage some of their intel for that. But that's part of the issue too, is that he spoiled us with knowing everything like the back of his hand. We have a lot of capabilities on our consoles that a lot of counties don't see on a daily basis. And we really, for lack of better terms, we're spoiled with having that ability to hear other counties and hear other things happening coming our way real time.
And thank you for you and your staff and the critical moments you have. And sometimes you're slow, but probably very few times. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Trottier. Is there any other supervisors or youth and governance who have a question? Please, Supervisor Wishaw.
Sorry, just to follow up, for the digital versus analog, can you just give a brief synopsis of switching over to digital? Obviously be more user-friendly, correct? But I mean, I think this was a discussion before I came on board, so kind of nice to have a little bit of a understanding of it.
I mean, I don't know that I would say that it's more user-friendly. I mean, both systems are user-friendly. It's just a matter of what makes better sense moving forward into the future. And it, like I, talked about, it's more about, better quality service going into those interior, for the first responders. So that if they've got something important to say, say, God forbid, a active shooter, if we're dealing with something like that, we want to make sure that they can get that important message back out to us and out to the other responders.
So with the digital system, how, I guess, is there any capability of that going down in any scenario?
I mean, I think there's always that possibility, right? You're dealing with computers. I would never want to sit here and say it'll never go down.
Yeah.
And even the company that we go with would never tell me it'll never go down. It's rock solid. I mean, I just think no one's going to make that comment. Obviously we're going to make sure that it's as robust as it possibly can be. And, all of our municipalities will be involved in what that system looks like going forward, because obviously it affects every single one of them.
So just to throw a wrench in the works here, if the system for some reason does go down, what is the backup?
So it'll be just like it is now. We have 3 layers of redundancy built in place. So, I mean, there's things that happen almost daily, whether it be super little things or whether it be something that we have to order a part for, but there's redundancy built in place where hardly anybody even knows that it occurred,
Okay.
Certainly like the responders really don't even notice it unless it's something a little bit more major, but we have an alarm system that tells us when something's going down.
Okay.
And then we contact, the powers that be that need to come fix that.
Sure.
So, I mean, moving forward, we'll have those same alarm systems in place. We'll know when something's not quite right. We don't know how to fix it, but we contact the people who do know how to fix it. And then, like I said, it's those redundancies are built in place. So like it'll hit the problem. It'll go back around the loop the other way, and it'll continue on communications, and nobody will never know.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Supervisors, any other questions? If not, I'm going to open, please, Supervisor Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I missed this piece, but I know you said it takes 2 years to replace. Is that accurate? Or
So what they told us was from the time of signing the document saying, okay, we're moving forward with this system that we've talked about, that we've laid out the plans for, from signing the contract, it'll take 18 to 24 months to be entirely completed.
Okay, so the other question is, how long do you think, what's the time of operation? When do you need this new change to happen by? Like, what's that time frame?
I mean, I think we need to move forward with it as soon as possible. Like I said, some of the pieces of that puzzle are end of life. So we need to be moving forward with that as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I mean, like I mentioned, we have some parts now that we already have that are sitting either at our facility or at the radio tower facility, ready should we need them. But I don't want to find out what happens when we run out of
Got
those.
it. Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Trottier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Supervisor Maldonado, the longer we wait, the price continues to escalate. Just FYI. Thank you.
And I will just note that County Executive Delagrave has mentioned to the county board about digitalizing this system. So I would assume we probably will foresee this in the next budget to come. I'm going to open the floor now. We have a supervisor joining us virtually. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Supervisor Spencer, did you have any questions?
I do. Thank you. Hi, Jackie. Um, my question is about the non-emergency calls that come in. I know that almost all municipalities, your dispatchers answer the non-emergency calls, and then the city of Racine is advised to go online and do their non-emergency call, ask for a response through that. I'm curious about the numbers and when that started, and if the numbers of non-emergency calls for Racine have dropped significantly. I feel that it discourages people from using it.
So, I mean, I guess to clarify, we answer all emergency and non-emergency throughout all of Racine County. So we field all of those calls. Each police department does have their own phone number that you can reach individuals there or their records departments, depending on what it is that you're looking for, whether that's police reports or to talk to a shift commander or whatever.
I'm sorry, just for point of clarification to guide the answer to this, I believe what Supervisor Spencer is talking about is an online form to be filled out through the website for non-emergency issues. Do they go to you?
So the calls, some people do call us for those things, and there is a select list of calls for service that the Racine Police Department has identified at their department, which I can't really speak about because it's not my policy. But they have a list of calls for service that are non-emergency in nature, or as long as they are non-emergency in nature, they are directed to fill out this online form to file their complaint online. And then those are dealt with at the police department by assigned individuals is the way I understand it. But those are certain calls for service that we are directed by that police department. If you're in that jurisdiction, that's the way they're handling those calls. So I don't know that our calls into the center have decreased at all. Is that what you're asking, Supervisor Spencer? If our non-emergency calls have decreased?
Yeah, I think that most people don't realize that that they have to go online. People in the city of Racine don't really realize that they need to go online to fill out that form, and so I imagine you still get a number of calls, and then people are redirected to the online form, which is difficult to find even on the city website, which has nothing to do with your dispatch, but it's frustrating for people to use. And so I'm wondering if the number of non-emergency calls have decreased because they probably come into you anyway, or maybe from the viewpoint of your dispatchers, are they does anyone track the number of calls that come in, and then your dispatchers have to say, I'm sorry, you have to go online to fill that out?
No, I don't have any way of tracking that. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Spencer, did you have any other questions?
No, thanks.
Sure. Just a follow-up. Are your dispatchers stating to the city of Racine residents, are they stating that they will need to go online and fill out a form?
For certain calls for service, yes, absolutely, because that's the direction that we have from that department, yes.
So that is good for us to know, those who service the city of Racine, to find it, unless you have a list that you give your dispatchers of items that need to be directed to.
We have a list that we were provided by the police department, but I would highly suggest that you obtain that list from that department. I can certainly point you in the right direction as far as a
Okay.
contact, but I don't know that I can share that outside of our operation.
Very good. Thank you for that. I do know that Supervisor Spencer said it is hard to find. Not to say we are not capable of doing that, but I think
Meaning the online form is hard to
the
find?
online form, it's not very intuitive. So that is the city of Racine.
Yeah.
So, yep. Just for
Yeah,
clarity again.
if I may,
Please.
had a problem, and some of my neighbors up the road have a problem, and they feel discouraged by using that online phone. And Jackie, I know that's not, it's something that I've already reached out to the mayor and one, two, three, 4 alders now to try and see if that can be improved. So that's why I was curious about the number of calls, if it's decreased or how that's
So I will
worked.
just add a little piece of information too to this. We were just advised that they have added some staff that's on site at the police department to assist people with filling out that form online. Um, I don't recall the hours. I believe it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 type of hours. But there are some staff that are dedicated at the police department. There's a specific desk at the police department that we can direct people to, and they'll help them filling that out online. I don't know if that means they'll input it for them, but I just know that we were told that there was some additional help that was being staffed for that now.
Okay. And most people who call the non-emergency number go to your dispatch, right? Via
All of the
phone.
people that are calling the non-emergency dispatch number are coming into us, yes. Correct.
Supervisor Wishaw, just speaker, please.
Sorry. Just to clarify, my comments were the county dispatch has their own number. And then just to piggyback on what you said, city and other municipalities have their own number.
Other municipalities, each police department has their own non-emergency
Correct.
police department number. However, if you're calling the county dispatch non-emergency number, all of those numbers are coming, all of those phone calls are coming to us.
Okay.
886-2300 always comes to us.
Sure.
Each of the police departments has phone trees, and there's an option on there to reach dispatch. If it's press 2 to have an officer come take a report, that's going to come into us at dispatch. But there is other options on those phone trees to reach records for a copy of a report or to reach a shift commander to file a complaint, those kinds of things.
So some of those then would need to be, like maybe the city could do better outreach on that then, instead of the county.
As far as their form goes?
Yeah, their form, they're not emergency, things like that. Okay, thank you.
And just for another point of clarity, I don't mean to keep staying on this topic, but this was not a directive by your center for the city of Racine to take on and have these forms. This was just something they presented to you that they were going to take over.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you so much. Committee members, any additional questions? Supervisor Harmon?
Do you know why they changed it over to the forms? Because it wouldn't seem time efficient. It would seem like if we have to add man hours, and I know that it's not you, Jackie, and you may not be able to answer the question, but I always ask questions if I have them. But anyway, I don't know why it changed to that process if we're hiring people to help fill out the form. The constituents or the residents are not finding the form and then probably just calling the number back, which is a duplication of processes, which I hate because I like things efficient. I'm just not really understanding if fill out the form was supposed to help. It doesn't seem like from what I'm hearing. And if it's a city issue, they're calling the county calling the county number. The residents don't know if it's city or county. They're going to complain about the county people not doing it right. So there's something that city, county, all of us need to, I'm thinking have a say in. We may not be able to change, but if the process is broke, something has to be fixed. So would you happen to know why it went that way?
I don't know the specific reasons. I can tell you it started when COVID was a challenge. So it started out as a way that they could still file those reports and not have to be seen face to face. So initially that's how it began, and then it has stayed as a part of their process. You're welcome.
Thank you. Supervisors, Supervisor Dembski, please.
Thank you, Chair. Before I go with any questions, Jackie, just one thing to add into this particular conversation is, I mean, we are also at the county board having these conversations about the digital divide and trying to close it. And we've identified that the city of Racine has the greatest disparities of people who don't have internet access. So this is a serious public safety issue for the constituents that many of us represent, and something that I really appreciate you sort of uplifting, and I guess Supervisor Spencer also for uplifting in this conversation. So thank you all for that. Um, First of all, thank you, as always, for coming and talking to us, Jackie. You know that I am very partial to Jackie. Jackie knows all of this, so this is more for the new committee members' benefit, but I'm very partial to hearing from the dispatch center because my wife was a 911 dispatcher for 5 years, started at the city of Racine, and then was with you all when you went through the process of going joint. But that has given me a really close front row seat to a lot of what you all do, a really intimate understanding to how utterly difficult it is. One thing I'll say is, and the chair did kind of gesture towards this, but it does take people who are remarkably competent. Like I know a little bit about what y'all's job entails, and I don't think I could do it. Like I'm very bad at multitasking, for instance, and none of you are bad at that. But also you do have just, and I think this is an often overlooked reality, you have a very hard job. You have a very emotionally taxing job. And I know that my wife was the last voice that a lot of people ever heard on the phone, right? So I just, as always, when you come and talk, want to express my appreciation for the people who work on your team because it's so utterly necessary for all of us. But it's a sacrifice for all of you to do. So thank you, as always. I think the only question that I have probably is a pretty maybe simple one. So 800 to 1,000 calls a day. First, with that, it sounds like you're saying that is an increase from something previously. Could you just talk a little bit more about when
Sure.
that was an increase?
I don't know that I can pinpoint exactly when it increased. It gradually increases, and I wouldn't say every year. And we've seen, I would say from 3 years ago even to now, it was slightly higher, probably when the I-94 construction was going on. There was more accidents, there was more traffic because there was less lanes to travel. So I think we saw some of that, and it kind of just um, kind of increased when all of that was going on. And then I don't want to say decreased, but it leveled out a little bit after that. Over the last 2 years, we've not seen a huge increase at all. If anything, it stayed the same. But that's a total call volume. So that's incoming and outgoing. So that's all the phone calls that we make also, including to tow companies, to highway departments, to, other people as far as like looking up a plate and calling somebody when maybe something wasn't paid for at say a gas station. So there's drive-offs, right? And sometimes that's intentional. A lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's a credit card that wasn't read the right way. If you've ever been victim of getting a phone call from us saying, hey, you forgot to pay for your gas. And you're like, no, I paid for it. I mean, that happens every day. It's again, you're dealing with computers, so yes, there are times when things are not working just right. So, I mean, to go back to your question, I can't pinpoint when that increased, but those numbers are anywhere from, like I said, 800 to 1,000. So some days it's lower, some days it's higher than 1,000. Like all of the calls that we received on Highway 11 last week from the head-on semi-collision. There's a drastic increase in the middle of the day there when everybody's out and about and everybody has a cell phone and they want to make sure that we know about this black cloud in the sky that they can see from miles away. And maybe they called several minutes, maybe almost 30 minutes after the fact. At any rate, they called. What if we didn't know about it? What if we didn't already have people on scene? So we're just thanking those people for calling, letting us know about it, but that we have several first responders on scene. So, and I think that goes to some of it too, is that everybody has a cell phone. And even when they're just driving past something, if they don't see first responders there, they're calling, and rightfully so, because what if we didn't know about it? So I think it's just the fact that every child probably over the age of 10 for the most part has a cell phone, and so on up. We get pocket dials, we get especially when school's in session, because everybody's sticking their phones in their pockets, right? And then sitting on them in math class. And then sometimes it sounds like, if we can't get a voice on the other end of the line, we spend amount of time trying to call that person back and reverse looking up the phone number to figure out, can we figure out where they are? If they're plotting on a school on our map, chances are they're in class somewhere. But unless we get somebody on the phone telling us there's not a problem, when a phone's moving around in a pocket, it sounds like there could be some sort of fight, or it just depends on what kind of voices you're hearing in the background. So we do have to play detective at times, and I guess that was a really long-winded answer to your question, but I don't have an explanation for the increase other than increased cell phone use, increased traffic problems, those kinds of things.
Okay. I think the only follow-up to that, and you might not have, even if you have a general sense of this, I imagine you don't have any specific like metrics to put to this. But I'm curious as to, when my wife, I know there's a huge range of the calls that you all field. It sounds like many of them now are being told to potentially go to an online resource if it's potentially inappropriate. I know that my wife, it sounded a lot actually like the work we do at the library, a lot of people calling you sometimes just because they're lonely almost. And even with working at the library, something that we've been working on internally with our staff is to get them to know when an appropriate time and an inappropriate time to call 911 is. If a man who sleeps outside of the library is just swearing, rather than calling law enforcement, wasting their time, scaring this man who's dealing with some mental illness issues, why don't one of us just, hey, excuse me, you're actually swearing loudly again. And usually, surprisingly, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm doing it again, right? So anyways, to get to my question, if you have even a sort of general sense, would you be able to say how many of those 800 to 1,000 calls do you feel like are, I don't know if you want to call them lower priority or something of that nature versus, say, like a violent crime or something of that nature?
Yeah, you're right. I don't have any specifics on that. I mean, we could run some call reports as far as call for service reports. And if it's more of a non-emergency type thing, we're not necessarily punching a call, so that they wouldn't be 100% accurate as far as the calls go in alignment with the calls for service that are created. But we could certainly look at that a little bit better for you, and I could certainly let you know some of that information as far as in a day, take a snapshot of a day, and just let you know on average, these are the types of calls that were violent crimes, whether that be an assault or a shooting or those types of things versus a neighbor's dog who's defecating on my yard, and I'll go back to the peer support piece of that, which I didn't mention, was some of that where we deal with those difficult things is that roller coaster where you're taking a call and you're walking somebody through CPR, and you're walking that loved one through CPR when right when they answer the phone and right when they gave you the initial information. A lot of times we can tell by what they're describing to us that this might not be worth the efforts that we're going through, but if that person's willing to go through those efforts, because we don't know for sure. So we're walking somebody through CPR, and the next call we answer is a neighbor who's mad that their neighbor just cut down a tree that they feel is theirs. And sometimes that's really hard to bite your tongue. And at times we are human, right? And there are, I don't want to call it a mistake, but there are misspeakings that take place. And then Jackie has a coaching session with that person, like, hey, listen to yourself. They didn't know what you just took. But at the same time, maybe you have to step out of the room and just get a breath of fresh air. Give yourself that time to process what you just dealt with, and then come back in the room a little bit refreshed, not completely out of your mind. Obviously, a breath of fresh air is not going to erase what you just dealt with, but it will better equip you to handle that next, what you might feel like is a ridiculous call. we might think it's a ridiculous call, but to this person, it's the most important thing happening for them right now.
I remember my wife teaching me the term compassion fatigue when she worked at the dispatch center. So
It's a real
definitely, thank
thing,
you. Yeah.
yes.
If you are willing to, I know that you offered to maybe give us a snapshot of, the stratification of some of the calls that you all get in a day. And if you're willing to get that, if the chair deems it appropriate, I imagine the committee members would be interested.
It might be beneficial to see like one time during the week and then maybe like on a Friday or Saturday, because I'm sure those are drastically different in some scenarios.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I'll just add some comments to Supervisor Dembski's request. And, if we think about what are we going to do with that information? How are we going to use that? I think what might be more helpful, especially to Supervisor Dembski being a representative from the city, the police department does offer those numbers that are happening in the city. They did just present at one of the last meetings in regards to the increase in violent crimes and the increase of calls where guns are involved and shots fired. That's right. And so all those numbers the City of Racine Police Department does have, and they do have them at their fingertips. So what's great about that is they are averages. And it's taken from a period of time, and then also see the increase over years rather than getting one day, one snapshot of that one point in time, which may be an anomaly, and to think about how we want to use that data that we're requesting. So, but maybe seeing the City of Racine's average numbers might be helpful moving forward, and this changes over the time. So just to know that is available. Supervisor Dembski, did you have anything else? Okay. Any other committee members? I did have, and I didn't want to take the floor all to myself here, but we, in our 2022 budget, and I did have help, so thank you, Jackie, to point it out to me. But it is good to know that Jackie's department, the communication department, is under the administrative services in the budget. We will see that coming probably October time period, but I'm just going to bring forth, mention 2022 goals of your budget, and maybe if you could just speak on where we're at with that, okay? So one of the items was identify and develop strategies to implement increased employee feedback and recognition, both by supervision as well as coworkers. Could you speak to that?
Sure. So one thing we started doing was meeting with employees one-on-one more regularly. The shift supervisors were not easily able to do that because with our staffing challenges, they were working the floor a lot more, helping out with that call volume more so. But now that we have greater retention and have a greater number of folks that have joined us and our training, as their training progression takes place, they're able to handle more channels. That allows the supervisors to free up some time and meet with each of them individually and just hearing what their concerns are, hearing what they feel is important to them as far as how we improve our operations daily.
Thank you. There was another one too. This just really speaks to the budget. So this is something we will have our magnifying glasses on looking through soon, but to continue to seek out grants and other funding opportunities to reduce operating costs to taxpayers. Can you speak on that, please?
Sure. So we have been actively looking for grant opportunities. We have found some. So far, the two big ones that we found, we are not eligible for, and I forget what the criteria was that we did not meet on those. But that was something that the sheriff's office, myself, and Travis was working on to identify some of those. And so we continue to do that. Yep.
Thank you for that. And I'm sure you're going to have more moving forward that we will hear about, but I'm glad that we can check in with you at this moment to hear the status of those. I think I just want to leave with a statement of just appreciation. I know we've heard it from the supervisors who've been able to ask questions and share their thoughts, but as our community has had some trauma lately. There's been incidences, whether it was from the incident that just happened last week where you talk about the semis, but even the violence that's happening specifically in the city, but I'm sure all over, you know, our community feels that trauma. And just to note, to really bring it to life is that your dispatch is handling that, not only handling it that day, it is handling that one incident. It's handling all the incidents that are happening that day and thereafter. And so I would assume with the wounds that those dispatchers may feel, it's good to really humanize the positions in which dispatch is. It's just not 911. There's people beyond those calls. And I like to empower with knowledge myself and my constituents. So there's few things I learned today that I would like to share. You're going to have to clean up because I'm going to call it the wrong thing. But please do that. So if other supervisors didn't know about it, that they too can be empowered to educate their constituents as well. But there is a system, SOS something. And what I took away from that, I didn't recognize that you talked about at the beginning that location, 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 the very first thing, very crucial to those who call 911. And sometimes it's not so obvious to the callers where they are. There was certain information that you can grab from them. I would like you to speak on that. And I'm also, I know you're going to say this, but it's a question in there. But you're going to ask for license plate numbers for cars that are around them. And is that because of what's equipped in those officers' cars where they can scan license plates as they're driving by? So that is a question, but please clear up what that SOS is.
Sure. Okay. So Rapid SOS is an online portal that we have access to. It's provided to PSAPs, so public safety answering points, any dispatch center. It's provided to us for free by this company. It's called Rapid SOS. So it's an online portal where we can plug in a phone number so we're taking a call from someone. We can plug in the phone number. It'll give us more precisely where they're calling from. And it draws on things like Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats or DoorDash. It's grabbing that knowledge that you've inputted into those various apps, and it's pulling the data from the device versus the triangulation of cellular signals. So while I was explaining to the group that was through the center today that it's not 100%, just like anything else. So it's not always 100% accurate, but it is more definitively able to pinpoint where someone is when they cannot share with us where they are, or they choose not to share with us where they are for whatever the reason may be. And then secondly, the license plates. So one thing I asked the kids today on the tour was, things to be aware of when you're not somewhere that you're necessarily familiar with. So if you're at someone's house, say you're at your friend's house and you really truly don't know what their address is. Maybe you're familiar with what street you're on, but you do not know the address of where you are. And maybe the child, left, the child that you were there with left, and you're there with mom and mom just passed out. And that's why you're calling 911. How are you going to quickly find the address that you're calling 911 and you want us to respond to? So suggestions that we often give kids in that predicament are look for a piece of mail on the counter. Maybe you can find a piece of mail where it says, your friend's mom and dad's name, and it says what address that we might be needed at. If there's no piece of mail and you're not able to look at the numbers on the house if you can. If you're still not able to find it, if there's a car parked in the driveway that belongs to mom or dad or brother or sister, give us that license plate. We can then run that plate, and that should give us the address. Again, not always, but it's a suggestion. Maybe it's not mom or dad's plate. Maybe it's, they didn't change the address on the plate. But if that is something that can help us, we just want you to be aware of those things and those types of tools that might be able to help us.
So helpful. I took a couple other things that you somewhat spoke on, but I just think it's important to reference it again. Is that non-emergency, that 886-2300, is going to the same dispatchers that are taking the 911 calls.
Correct.
So again, just very important for us to stress that to our constituents. Maybe thinking about when they are making those calls, even though it's advertised and not as non-emergency. It really is going to those same dispatchers that are taking emergency calls as well. And the number of lines I thought was important too, that was a takeaway for me, just because like with the incident that happened last week, there's only so many lines and there may be a busy signal. So 911 is capable of giving you a busy signal, and that could be very frustrating to those who are trying to get through. But speak to the number of lines that we have and a little bit about that volume of what happens during those moments.
Sure. So with the phone upgrade that we had in 2020, we went to a hosted site that did open up our capability of specific 911 lines a bit. So, but there still are only a certain number of 911 lines. I believe that number is 12 for us now. But what that means is when we have these larger type events, the system can very quickly become flooded. So, there's 2 times in the 17 years that I've worked here that I can remember an individual calling and letting us know that they received a busy signal and demanded to know why on earth they call 911, and rightfully so, right? When you call 911, you expect it to ring and get an answer. So, one of those times was the fiery crash a couple of years ago on I-94, where it closed both directions of I-94. So completely overwhelmed our center, and it was an all hands on deck type of day. In fact, we called in extra people. We actually didn't have to call them. They called us and said, hey, oh my gosh, I just saw what happened. Do you guys need some help? So we had every position in our center filled and then some, and we were able to quickly funnel through calls as quickly as possible, because it does still take some time. You still have to ask people, even though you're completely flooded with calls, were they a witness? And if they were, we need to gather their information so that the first responders can talk to them later for information that they might have about the accident. So while we would like to funnel people through quicker, like, yes, we have that call, we've got people on the way, we still need to identify if they had a role in any of that. So there is still a processing component to that.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to open up for one more time for questioning, looking at the supervisors, and then Jody, are you okay? Supervisor Spencer? Okay. Yes, please, Vice Chair Dembski.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just ask before we close, Jackie, I know you said that you could refer us to the person that would probably be the person to contact at the city regarding getting the list of calls that would be referred to online. Just want to check if you could, I guess, maybe tell us how you expect to, so we know what to expect.
So I'll check with the sergeant that we work with when there is a problem with that online portal and see who he wants us to refer you guys to. I don't know if that will be the assistant chief or whom it would be at this point, but we work with the sergeant on I don't want to say daily basis because there's not issues with it daily, but on a fairly regular basis with it. So I'll check with him and then let you guys know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing us back to that and for clarifying the process. Jackie, forgive me, I hope this is not offensive. As you're telling me the things that you're overseeing and doing, as this is dispatch, I look to you, you are dispatch to me. And so I look at it kind of like the mother of the ship. You're caring for so many pieces of this, not only with the budget, the policies, the equipment, the retention, and the care and the nurturing and the health of the employees in there. That really speaks volumes to your character, Jackie. And thank you just seems to not be enough. But if you could please give us a little bit about, you are a person, and I don't want that ever to be lost. Tell us a little bit about, you came to dispatch from somewhere, about your time there. I just want to know a little bit more about this mother that we have that's overseeing so much responsibility.
So my background, I actually went to school for agriculture, agribusiness. And my background is we are dairy farmers here in Racine County as well. We have a dairy farm in Raymond. And we milk 175 cows. So that's what I do in my spare time. This weekend we chop hay. So I was driving a tractor and eating a bunch of dust and all that fun stuff. So that is my background. And then we moved to Platteville for 2 years and farmed out there for a little bit, moved back to the area. And I worked at a feed mill, which the same feed mill that I worked at when I was in high school. And so I worked at a feed mill where farmers come in every day and they bring their corn in and they sell it to the feed mill, and I would weigh them and we would test the corn. And then I was like, this just isn't enough. And the 911 operator job was advertised and I was like, I think I'm going to try that. And so, I mean, and then they didn't offer tours into the dispatch center as part of the onboarding process. We do that now, and I'm glad that we do that. I honestly don't know if I'd be sitting here if we did a tour. I think I might have been scared to move forward with it, but nonetheless, I can't imagine not doing this now, I guess I should say. So, but I want to say we have a really great leadership team. We have a really great team of 911 individuals. This is not a Jackie Bratz show by any stretch of the means. It is a team effort every single day. And not just on the days of the crashes on Highway 11 and not just on the I-94 days. Every single day it is a team effort, whether I'm saying, hey, how do we do this again? Or whether they're asking me a question like, how do I handle this? I mean, there's just things, and I think that's what makes it exciting for all of us. There is something every day that we've never encountered before, and good, bad, or otherwise, right? So it's just there's just something that we always are dealing with, whether it's the littlest of things or whether it's something drastic and awful. But we encounter that together. And I just cannot speak enough about the great people that we have working for us. We're very fortunate.
Coming from you, that's very powerful. So thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. And I will say, those who have not been to dispatch, it looks like an airport control. It's just unbelievable. All of them sit by like 6 monitors and there's just action going on. And we were interrupting their day and we were in the way too. So there was a lot of, instead of the shouts going across the room for more efficiency, we're slowing it down as they're navigating through us, but with no complaints, mind you, which is unbelievable. But so thank you for being our guest today, and I look forward to seeing what's to come during the budget time. And I'm sure you offer yourself if there would be any questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Do not hesitate to contact me.
okay.
And thank you guys for the opportunity to hear me
Yes.
out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate it. Okay, committee, I think this ends our agenda. I just wanted to take a look, and it does. So thank you. So with that, I just will need a motion of adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Supervisor Harmon in a second, and Supervisor Wishaw. We are adjourned as we have exhausted the agenda. Thank you.